नाटक कलाविष्कार बघत बघत मगाशी म्हणाला त्याप्रमाणे आमची पिढी मोठी झाली. मला त्याच्यामुळे एक प्रश्न सतत पडत आलेला आहे. सुरुवातीचा प्रश्न म्हणून मी हे करतो, नंतर मग आमचे सहकारी मुक्तपणाने संवाद साधू शकतील. अत्यंत आधुनिक काळात आपण कलाविष्कार सादर करत आलात, पण त्याच वेळेला त्याचा आधार हा पुराण कथांमध्ये मिथकांमध्ये तुम्ही शोधलात. हे का करावं असं वाटलं, हा एक भाग, हा त्यातला एक प्रश्न. आणि दुसरा प्रश्न मला वेगळ्या अर्थाने मांडायचा की महाराष्ट्रात त्यावेळेला तुमची कारकीर्द सुरू होती, त्याच वेळेला विजयाबाई होत्या, नाटककार या अर्थाने विजय तेंडुलकर होते. विजय तेंडुलकरांसारखे नाटककारांनी सामाजिक प्रश्नांना तुम्ही ज्या हात घातलात त्यांना थेटपणे हात घालणारे मुद्दे मांडले, त्या पद्धतीने लेखन केलं. तुम्ही मुद्दे तेच मांडलेत, विषय तसे झालेत, पण वेगळ्या वाटेने. त्याच्यामध्ये काही विचार होता का, आणि तो विचार का त्याचं कारण काय, त्याचं असं का करावं असं वाटलं?
गोष्ट अशी की आय होप आय कॅन ओनली गो इन टू इंग्लिश ओकेजनली, की आय ग्रू अप इन सिरसी. सिरसीत मी वाढलो. सिरसी इज अ प्लेस इन कर्नाटक. माय फादर वॉज इन द गव्हर्नमेंट सर्व्हिस इन महाराष्ट्र, and before 1956, as you know, North Karnataka was a part of Bombay state. तर माझे वडील म्हणजे इथं सगळं when he was getting transferred, ते इथं माथेरान सिंधपर्यंत जाऊन आलेले आहेत. त्यामुळे आमच्या फॅमिलीत आम्ही सगळे बायलिंग्वल आहोत. आम्ही वी ग्रू अप, अँड इनफॅक्ट द फर्स्ट लिटरेचर आय ग्रू अप ऑन वॉज मराठी. I mean, I know my Nasi Phadke very, very well. I mean, the kind of literature which you sit in a corner and read quietly, the first was Nasi Phadke, and not his equivalent in Kannad. The romantic literature was V.S. Khandekar. So that was there, but then he was transferred he Sassoonla hote माझे वडील, and then he retired in Sassoon, and then the government said the Second World War is on. आणि सेकंड वर्ल्ड त्यांना डॉक्टरांची गरज होती, आणि डॉक्टर माझे वडील डॉक्टर होते. तर ही गॉट एन ऑफर सेइंग इफ यू आर ऑल द यंगर पीपल आर ऑन द फोर फ्रंट, सो इफ यू आर ऑन द फ्रंट, तर तुम्ही इफ यू आर विलिंग टू गो टू अ प्लेस लाईक सिरसी विच वॉज देन कन्सिडर्ड अ पनिशमेंट पोस्ट, मलेरियल, then we'll give you an extension, and he took the extension. My mother was very upset because she loved Pune, but my father took, which I think was very lucky for us, because तिथे electricity नव्हती. You know, it was only, Sirsi was only a place of about 910, and there were एक दोन मोडके हे होते, काय थिएटर्स होते, आणि the only entertainment real apart from the नाटक companies which used to come, पावसाळ्याच्या आधी यायचे कन्नड नाटक कंपनीज, which were modeled on मराठी नाटक कंपनी. So very often they did संगीत साम्राज्य, which ultimately I discovered was संशय कल्लोळ. काहीतरी नावं बदलून ते मराठी नाटकं करायचे तिथे. So in fact later I discovered that I had seen a lot of Marathi plays because I had seen them in Kannada. You know, they without permission they करायचे, आणि ते चालत असत. तर the great thing in Sirsi was because there was no other entertainment, there were stories. We talked of stories all the time. Amazing number of stories were told in classrooms वगैरे. आणि मुलं सुद्धा, because we had no entertainment, we will sit together and tell stories. If a teacher couldn't come, he would get a boy to come and say, okay, you tell a story, and they would go, and the boy would concoct stories, you know, and we would listen. कारण दुसरं काहीच entertainment नव्हतं, घनदाट जंगल this, and there I learned almost the whole of Mahabharata, Ramayana through oral, through kirtans and harikathas and yakshagan and so on and so on and so on. And as a part of growing up, not as something that you watched, as a part of growing up. And in for instance, the myths, they took all kinds of forms. One example, beautiful example, is in yakshagan there is a form called Talamaddale. तर त्या ताळामध्येच काय होतं, someone becomes Krishna, someone becomes Duryodhan. There's no costume, no dress, nothing. They sit, आणि मग म्युझिक असतं, and they गातात and they discuss. You know, they improvise the whole yakshagana prasanga without any costume. But someone becomes one character, someone becomes another character, and fierce debates take place. You know, if an actor is very, very good, he will prove that Krishna was evil and Duryodhan was good. that's permitted. The whole point is the actors are, and it still goes on. I mean, it's called matukate, samvad. And if you attended that, then you suddenly saw that these characters were not doing plays. They were defending the role. They were defending Krishna. They were defending Duryodhana. And Duryodhana and Krishna भेटले असते तर काय झालं असतं ते you could see that there because ही प्रथा अजूनही चालू आहे, यक्षगानामध्ये चालू आहे. त्यामुळे काय व्हायचं की what I later on saw in something like इरावती करे's युगांत, where she interprets की अर्जुन काय होता, कृष्ण काय होता, why was चित्रांगद वगैरे त्यांना मुलं नाही व्हायची झाली तेव्हा त्यांनी व्यासला काढलं. Why was a sannyasi brought in? Because there should be no claims for throne. ही सगळी माहिती आम्हाला लहानपणीच we had in the discussions it used to take place. And that gave me a real basis in Purana Katha. And I only when Tendulkar saw Yayati, he said to me, मराठीत एक पौराणिक नाटकांची प्रथा आहे, पण त्या प्रथेत एक पौराणिक पात्र म्हणजे एका पद्धतीनं बोलतात, एका पद्धतीनं त्यांची शैली असते, वागतात, पण ते तुमच्या नाटकात नाही. तुमच्या नाटकात ते सगळे म्हणजे they just behave, except they wear किरीट वगैरे करतात, पण they actually behave like this is very new to me. So I said that's all a part of the thing. And as a result, to me, really the Puranas and Mithak वगैरे were more real. आणि I was interested in theatre always because my parents were interested in theatre. ते इथं होते, पुण्याला होते मी म्हटलं ना. And my father had seen old Parsi naटक्स. He used to tell me about खोने खोना आणि ते सगळे म्हणजे त्या काळचे हे. आणि आई had seen बालगंधर्व शिकवून दाखवायचे कसं करायचं बघू, कसं करून उडी मारून कसे जायचे. She had seen that all. And although we were in Sirsi, which my mother considered a completely ranti jaga, because she said that तुमच्या वडिलांनी तुम्हाला तर रानटी जागेत आणलेलं आहे, काही संस्कृती नाही वगैरे. But I got a lot of संस्कृती out of this kind of thing. And that became my first medium. I mean, not even obsession. I was not even conscious of it. So then when I grew up, and because I was interested in plays and so on, and I wanted to write plays, the Kannada playwrights who were then very dominant were Kailasam and Sriranga, Adhirangacharya. I mean, ह्या दोन्ही नाटककारावर who were there was of course the नाटक company परंपरा होतीच तिथं. Far, I mean, in a very bad state, but it was still like they're still there. I don't know whether in Maharashtra you have Sangeet Natak companies going around doing traditional. पण कर्नाटकात, उत्तर कर्नाटकात अजूनही 6-7 companies आहेत. They do the old plays and so on. जुनीच करतात, नवीनही करतात. म्हणजे ते काय I was interested, and I was, as I grew increasingly disgusted with the kind of social plays ज्याला म्हणतो. In Karnataka, it came actually influence of on Sriranga of people like Moga Ranganekar and Atre वगैरे वगैरे. Ki the play opens and the first thing you see is a sofa and there's a chair here and there's a chair there, and that there's a servant going फडकं घेऊन असं रामू गडी का कोणीतरी ते फडकं करतो, and then the phone rings and then he बोलतो हा जसं राव बहादूर मोहित्याचा बंगला आहे, नाही ते इंग्लंडला गेलेत असं काहीतरी. The whole information was given. I was, even at that age, when I was 15 or 16 and so on, I was disgusted with the whole thing, and I hope I could find some way of getting away from that kind of thing. And I went to England. But just before I went to England, when I was in Bombay, I saw Alkazi do Antigone, which this is Arnois. And he did Antigone. Alkazi did a marvelous thing even before he became the head of the National School of Drama. They European नाटक करायचे, not Shaw, not British playwrights, but not English playwrights, but European playwrights. And the European playwrights मध्ये काय झालं होतं, during the Second World War, because there was so much censorship from the Nazis in Paris, they had all used their myths to write their plays, because all their protests against the Nazis, like in Antigone, came through mythology, using Greek myths. I mean, there it hit me as to what one can do with mythology. कारण आमच्या mythology काय होतं, the first truth I realized is आमची जी नाटकं आहेत ती पौराणिक नाटकं आहेत, they are अशी म्हणजे they are dripping with bhakti. त्या आमच्या पौराणिक नाटकात ट्रॅजेडी शक्यच नाही, कारण तो भगवान तिथंच तयार असतो, तो म्हणजे टू अवॉइड ऑल ट्रॅजेडी अँड ऑल्दो पीपल सफर अँड सो ऑन, अल्टिमेटली यू नो इन अ पौराणिक नाटक that Ram or Krishna will arrive, so you get, whether you get your Harishchandra or you get your whoever it is or Sant the Vangmay, at the end that so genuine tragedy is not possible at all. While Greek tragedy, I suddenly realized through them, really talks of a human situation. And because I knew my mythology, I know there are stories like Yayati, which are genuinely tragic. In Yayati, for instance, the father takes the youth of his son, and he doesn't mind destroying his sons, and then he even curses the sons when they don't take his old age. And this is real depth into human, काही म्हणत, you could call him human, greed म्हणा, these passions, which आमची पौराणिक परंपरा carefully avoids. आमच्या पौराणिक परंपरेत villains आहेत, but they will ultimately transform themselves and ते भक्त संत कोण आहे किंवा भक्त कोण आहे त्याच्या पाया पडतील, त्यांचं परिवर्तन होईल, सगळ्यांचं भलं, everything ends in a thing. So I have written two mythological plays. One is Yayati, and the second one is called Agni and Paus, which is based on a Vedic tale, which is again from Maharashtra, from Mahabharata, a tremendously powerful tale of Yavakrita, and no one knows the story. It's totally unknown because stories, myths of that kind are not known at all. I'm saying all the people here who talk of our mythology, including कीर्तनकार म्हणा, हरिदास परंपरेतले म्हणा, नाटकं लिहिणारे म्हणा, they all took up this saccharine stories of God coming to your help and just avoid. The tragedy happens, but the tragedy is ultimately avoided. Then I just felt, no, I must really do, and this is how I got interested in this kind of material that we have. The material itself was not new to me. I had grown up in it. But how to look at it, I really learnt, not from British playwrights, but from French playwrights. Like Anouilh has written, then Sartre has written Flies, which is about Orestes' myth, and how the flies come and so on, where the flies are actually represent kind of Nazis, and he's fighting them. The whole from 1939, the war started till 45, 46. There are hundreds of, in the 30s also, there are any number of French plays, and this, which talk of protest, of tragedy and so on, using myth. And त्याच्यात मी पुष्कळ शिकलो from that literature. So that was the